Let's start with a deep breathing. Place your hands under your chin and inhale to the count of 6. When you inhale, feel the breath vibrate off the back of the throat. And when you exhale, whisper the word ah. Whisper the word ah. Whisper the word ah. Whisper the word ah. Got it? Let's go. Got it? Let's go. Whisper the word ah. Whisper the word ah.
They're feeling, a subject.
Well, hey there, welcome to my world. I'm Boom and I'm a record collector. I love collecting records, and in this series I'm hoping to show you some of the interesting stuff that I've collected. Now, this isn't going to be hardcore collector stuff and values and all that kind of stuff. It's just going to be interesting stuff that I've collected. And, you know, if you're relatively new to the hobby, hopefully, you know, I can show you some things that you might want to look out for. Maybe if you're already a seasoned collector, these are things that you might have seen that you might not know so much about or whatever, but, you know, hopefully you'll stay for the ride and we'll have some fun. Today, to kick it off, I've chosen something. I've gone safe this time. We're going with Led Zeppelin's first album. Everybody loves it, absolute classic. You can't beat Led Zeppelin's first album. Let's be honest. But so let's start it off. This one here. This is an American pressing. This is an original US pressing. It's a fairly obscure and unusual pressing because what's interesting about this particular record is that it has an Atco style label. I don't know how well you can see that. There's a little bit of debate about what this is all about, and it seems to be that this was pressed at RCA's plant in Indianapolis, and they were responsible for pressing records for the Record Club of America, and the label design itself actually correlates with other labels known to be Atlantic artists which had Record Club releases, Aretha Franklin, the Rascals, etc. So although there's debate, if you ask me, I'm going to say this is 99% a Record Club release, even though there's nothing to indicate it on the cover or the record itself. It's not just the label that's interesting about this. This sounds very, very different to your average copy of Led Zeppelin. One of the things about it that you may or may not notice straight away is that the stereo stage is actually reversed. For whatever reason, they've got their wires crossed, and what was in the left-hand speaker is now in the right-hand speaker, and what was in the right-hand speaker is in the left-hand speaker. And if you're familiar with the record, it actually sounds quite odd. And it's also mastered very differently. Some people say that this is a different mix, but I disagree. I think that this is probably the same mix, but it's just been mastered differently. As a result, it sounds like very, very heavy. It's hot, it's loud, the guitars are in your face. A lot of people I've heard actually prefer this to the original version. I will say it's probably lacking some of the finesse, some of the delicate acoustic playing, and like your Black Mountain Side and Babe I'm Gonna Leave You. But for heavy, this is the pressing to look out for. Now, like any original pressings of Led Zeppelin, if you want a really crisp copy of this, you're probably going to pay a few dollars for it. But as a curiosity, you can pick this up in VG Plus condition, acceptable condition, for not a huge amount of money. So that's one to look out for. It's a really interesting thing to add to your collection because, as I say, it's not only the label variant, it's the fact that the record sounds so different to a normal Led Zeppelin record. Now, this one here, this is an original Australian pressing of Led Zeppelin. Now, one of the most interesting things about this, or one of the most noticeable things, is the back cover. Now, this is called the script cover, and obvious for obvious reasons. It has a biography about the band and the band members, which is not on the British or American versions of the record. So that's quite interesting to begin with. One of the things that I've been fascinated about is I've been looking my entire life for the Australian mono edition of Led Zeppelin, which actually has a catalogue number listed on the record there, but I've never seen one, and I've never known anybody that's actually seen one. There are monos of this album in existence. There's South American copies. These are all fold-down mixes, though, which means they've taken the stereo mix and they folded the channels together to create a fake mono mix. In the transitional days, if you're a collector already, you'll be aware of this. There was a crossover period between stereo and mono when producers were mixing two different versions of a record, and as mono was phased out, stereo was phased in, and you could actually get two different versions of the records. And a lot of collectors look for both or favour one or the other. This would have been towards the end of mono. Mono was almost non-existent by the time this record came out. So I'm curious as to whether this was actually intended to have a mono issue that never came out. I have endeavoured to find somebody who owns a copy, or to find some absolute proof or to verify that this exists. So far, I've not been able to find any evidence whatsoever, and that's after like decades of intense searching. It is listed on Discogs. I've attempted to contact pretty much everybody who's either contributed to that page or has listed it as being in their collection, and so far not a single person has been able to verify a copy of this record, or that they can own one, not to my satisfaction anyway. All I want is some legitimate photographs of it. So if you've got one, like, please let me know, comments, whatever. I'd love to know about it, and I'm sure the greater collecting community would love to see a legitimate Australian mono Led Zeppelin. While we're talking about the original Led Zeppelins, it's very interesting. This is a UK Plum label edition. I'm sure we all know about the turquoise edition, which is the very first edition. This is an early US edition. The very earliest copies have quite a brown back cover, when later it went to a more orangey colour, which you can see. This is a slightly later US pressing with a more orange sort of back cover. If you're looking for one that sounds great, and everybody touts the turquoise, the first pressing, as being the absolute best pressing of Led Zeppelin. This one here, which is a second pressing, is equally as good, but you're not going to have to mortgage your house to buy one, so that's a good option if you're looking for a really, really excellent sounding copy of Led Zeppelin. The easiest thing to look for between a first and a second, if you're looking at, although there is some label discrepancies in terms of like small font differences and stuff there, the easiest thing to remember is if you look in the dead wax area of the record, which is this area around the label here, there's a series of numbers which are the matrix numbers for the record. Now, on the second pressings, there is a number 8 in there, which is scratched out, whereas on the first pressing, the 8 is visible and it's not scratched out. It's very obvious when you look in there. If you pick up this Plum label, you pull it out, you have a look, the easiest difference to look for is that number 8 scratched out. So that's just a tip for you if you're looking for like a first or second pressing of that album. The next one that I've got here is just to show you a difference where you're looking at that really brown cover, which the original US copies were really brown on the back cover as well. That's a slightly later one with like a mild orange color. If you look at a Japanese copy, and there's a few different pressings available of Japanese copies, that's a Japanese copy, but that has a lush orange back cover, like way more intense than any of the other ones. And the Japanese make great stuff. They truly make good quality records, sturdy covers, really good, great quality vinyl, great quality cuts. So again, you don't need to go for the original Japanese pressings, but a good quality Jap pressing is a great way to go if you're looking for a really nice sounding Led Zeppelin one. And the excellent thing too about Japanese copies is you always get the lyrics in a Japanese copy. They might not always be right, but 99% of the time you'll get the lyrics in a Japanese copy, where the lyrics don't come with the regular edition of this album from either the UK or the US. So that's something to look out for. Back to the Australian edition. Now, I showed you the script cover of the Australian edition. This is a transitional copy because in Australia they did eventually go to the more common picture that we know on the back of Led Zeppelin, but for a very short period of time, maybe even rarer than the script cover, this transitional cover. It's got a laminated front. You can see a little bit of bubble on there. That happens with these laminations. Front only lamination. You can see where that lamination terminates there, and it actually has the head boxed off and in black and white. Interesting variant. Again, just something to keep an eye out for. We're not talking, like millions of dollars or anything, but just something that you might notice if you're out there and go, that's interesting. So, yeah, another one. So in succession, there's 3 Australian covers basically. Within that, there's even more very slight variations on that, but that's the basic 3 Australian covers. Another one that I just find cool, I think this is a pretty cool thing. This is a Russian pressing of Led Zeppelin. I'm not sure how legit this is. As you see, it's got a slightly different picture on the back cover there and all the titles in Russian. It's a neat item to have. I would say the quality is not the best quality, but again, these pop up for not a lot of money, and the Russian writing and everything, a slightly different back cover, makes it a neat little collectible to add to your Led Zeppelin records. So that's another one to look out for. The last one that I've got in terms of albums is this absolutely beautiful. I'm going to take it out of the plastic so you can get a good look at this. This is the picture disc version of Led Zeppelin 1. Now, it claims to be Mexican. I'm not certain about its actual origin. It is a dubious, unofficial item, but it's extremely well done. All the titles there are in Hispanic to make it look legitimately like it's Mexican. The chances are that was just a decoy to, throw anybody off the scent of where it actually did come from. It probably came from Europe somewhere, but it is a beautifully done disc, and legitimate or not, it's something that I think any Led Zeppelin collector would be extremely pleased to put in their collection. I love it. The last couple of things I got to show you here. This one here, this is the original French picture sleeve for the first single, which was generally Communication Breakdown, but Good Times, Bad Times is the A side on this one. That's the original label, the yellow label. Very neat picture sleeve. I love it when they make these little tiny editions of the album cover sleeve. And just another one that's similar is, although this is from 1971, this is a few years later. This is a Mexican EP, and again, this time this is actually legit. Has all the Hispanic writing on it. It's got 3 tracks on it. It's got Mucho Amore, which is obviously a whole lot of love. Comunicación Interruptida, Communication Breakdown, and La Canción del Inmigrante, which is the immigrant song. That's a neat one to check out too. Just I don't think any of these items are going to break the bank. They're all really interesting things that you can look out for with relation to the first Led Zeppelin album. All things that I've picked up, just on my journey. For me, record collecting's not about how much the record cost. I get as much pleasure out of finding a really interesting $5 record as I do out of a $500 record. I don't do it for the value. I'd be lying if I told you that I don't keep track or have a look at the values of my records. It's always interesting. Not why I do it at all. So it's, neither here nor there. It's all about the passion of collecting, the thrill of the chase, the adding things to your collection. And, the one thing about a record collection is everybody's collection is unique, and it speaks about who you are, what you love. You can add anything to it. Don't be ashamed to add anything to your collection that you like, Just before I go, I want to show you one more thing, which is really, really cool. Well, I can get in here. This here, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to put some better pictures of it at the end of the video. This is the Block and Rockers Led Zeppelin minifigure kit. This is something that you can get. This guy, these are all hand detailed little figures. It comes in a kit form where you get the case and the little stage. You build the drum kit yourself and the Mellotron. Comes with instructions. Absolutely fantastic little toy, something to put on your desk. If you wanted to, you could go nuts and you could, build yourself a gigantic stage or something. But one of those things, considering how much work goes into customizing these little guys, these are actually quite great value, and I would totally recommend them if you're if you're a Led Zeppelin fan, or whether you're know somebody that's a big Led Zeppelin fan and you're looking for that perfect gift for somebody who has everything Led Zeppelin. You can't buy these off the shelf. That every single one of these is hand detailed, made to order. They won't break the bank. So I'll put up some information at the end and some good pictures of it, and hopefully you'll come back and you'll see me next time. We can talk about some more records. So thanks for checking it out, guys.
Whisper the word "ah."